Okay, let's talk about space. Space is one of the elements of art, and you've probably used it in your artwork before. One way to show space is to have a foreground, a middle ground, and a background in a landscape art piece. But there are so many different ways that you can use space in art. You can overlap subjects, add shading to show where your light source is and where the shadows are, place your subjects in various places, show size and proportions with the bigger subjects being closest to the viewer and the smallest being the farthest, show focus on the main subject, show perspective with your subject shrinking in size as it goes farther back. Today we're really going to focus on size, placement, and shading. The first thing that you're going to do is find the subject of your artwork. This is going to be something that you have in real life. I decided to choose a little glass piece of candy. Now we want to show size in our artwork, so we're really going to zoom in on this. We'll zoom in so much that part of your subject will probably go off the paper. This is another way to show space with placement. If it's helpful for you, go ahead and take a zoomed in photo of your subject, or take a photo and really zoom in on the photo on your computer. Now I'm going to start drawing in pencil my piece of candy, making sure that part of it is going off of the paper and that it's a really zoomed in picture. I want this to cover at least 2/3 of my paper. It should be really big. When drawing this, make sure you're really focusing on the little details. For my candy, I saw that there are so many different colors to show shading and light, so I made sure to include that. Really take your time and focus on your subject. The more details you add, the better the result will be in the end. Now I'm adding color, and I'm using colored pencil because it's the easiest to show all of the shading and light throughout my candy. I also like that with colored pencils, you can layer them on top of each other, and it kind of helps make your colors a little bit darker, but still having a pretty similar color. So right here, I'm adding some shading to a darker part of my piece of candy by using a darker brown. Then I'm layering that yellow that I started with on top of it. It makes it look like that's a darker version of that yellow. I'm also adding a little bit more shading by pushing down a little bit harder with my brown. So with colored pencils, if you want it to be darker, push down harder or layer some colors on top of each other and see what you can make. Now, if you have a similar object to mine where there's some white or clear areas, I want you to really look closely at these areas. So on my piece of candy, the little wrapper area, that's a clear area, which I could just make white, but then it would be really, really flat and wouldn't look as realistic. So make sure that you are adding a bunch of shading to that to make it look more realistic. You want to add darker areas and lighter areas. So I'm using black, gray, and I'm leaving a few areas white, but only to show the highlights. So make sure you're adding a bunch of different colors when you're filling this in. Now I'm just finishing up by adding a shadow in the background, and then I'm all finished.